All right. So Microsoft Loop, what is it? And is it in Teams? So before I even jump into anything, how many of y'all have used Loop at some point, at some level? All right. So some of you. Okay, cool. So let's start with go to the next slide. Thank you. Make sure you thank your sponsors. Go walk through the expo hall, say hi to everybody, thank them. Without them, you would have to pay for lunch, and the churros are not cheap. So thank the sponsors. They make all of these events happen, and we love this event, so we want to keep our sponsors coming back so that we can keep coming back. Please complete evaluations. Unless you don't like the session, don't complete this evaluation. Just let me know in person. And if you did like the session, please complete the evaluation. And also complete the evaluation for all the other sessions. That's what we're scanning, is so we can harass you about getting your evaluations done. All right, who am I? Why am I over here instead of you being up here? Because I've used Loop. I'm Jonathan Weaver. I've been in software development for a long time. I got dragged kicking and screaming into the SharePoint world in like 2012, 2013 when my wife said, I need you to help me with a workflow. And I was like, okay, what is SharePoint Designer and how do I use it? So I built this ginormous, ugly workflow with go-tos and all sorts of stuff. And you know, at that point, copy and paste didn't work in SharePoint Designer, so I built the same workflow like 30 times because I was stupid enough to keep trying to copy and paste things. And then I got stuck and never left. So I've been, then Power Platform, 2016 Power Platform rolled out, and I jumped into Power Platform and kind of found a niche there. But primarily what I do is M365 consulting and training. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. That's what the big QR code is for. If you haven't heard of this Copilot thing, yes, Copilot made my slides for me. That's why the Twitter or X handle is right below the LinkedIn QR code, because, you know, that makes sense, and that's exactly where I would have put it. More information about me. I'm the logic and workflow guy. I'm the whiteboard guy, so if you hear anyone talking about the whiteboard MVP, that's me. I'm a Teams MVP because I presented a lot of Whiteboard, and Whiteboard doesn't have its own category. So I sucked up to the Teams people, and they said, yeah, fine, we'll let you in. Email address, website. Feel free to go to the blog. I will not kill you with blog posts, maybe a couple a year if I'm lucky. All right, so you're not here for all that. You're here for Loop. So the question I keep hearing is, what is Loop? Microsoft Loop? Is that some new thing? Is that the new whiteboard thing? Is that the new note-taking thing? Tasks? All of them? Is it a new place I have to go to look for more things because I don't already have enough different places I have to go look? And the answer is yes and no. It is not all of those new, it's not replacing all of those tools, it's enhancing all of those tools. And of course, the question was asked by every Microsoft M365 user at some point in 2025, right? Obviously, every user asked that question. So we have to answer it. So today we're going to try to understand what Loop actually is. We're going to see how it fits in with Teams, Outlook, and Whiteboard, among others. And then the idea is to walk away ready to teach someone else. All right? So for you guys to be able to, this is not specifically a deep dive, technical, how to build all the things in Loop. This is, what is Loop? How do I use it? Why do I use it? And how can I take this back to my company and share it with my coworkers? Right? So Loop has three main components, or three main parts to Loop. There are components, pages, and workspaces. All right, so if you think about it, starting at the base, components are the individual pieces. So I'm going to jump down to this little tiny text at the bottom. If you think about Lego bricks, components are like the individual bricks that you use to build something bigger. All right, so we have live blocks of content. And when I say live blocks, I mean they're live. And we're going to get into what that means on a future slide. But live blocks of contents, things like task lists, tables, agendas, voting. I enjoy using the voting because, let's be real, trying to vote through Teams chat or email is not easy. And then these little components stay live and they stay in sync no matter where you use them. And you can put the same component into multiple places. So you can reuse components and they stay live in all the different places that we use them. The second chunk is pages. So going back to our Lego, if the components are the individual bricks, the pages are like the table that you're using to build your bricks, your Lego item onto. So pages are flexible documents that you can mix text, mix individual loop components in there, files, links. It's where the team gets together and puts all of their ideas into one place. Okay. How many of y'all are SharePoint users? Okay. So similar concept. In SharePoint, right, we have lists and libraries and pages and sites. Okay, so for a comparison perspective, if you think about the components more like your widgets, your web parts, maybe even the lists and libraries, and then the pages are like the pages. It's where you combine all the parts and pieces to tell the story. And then our third piece is workspaces. So think about that more like your SharePoint site. It holds all the other pages. It holds all your components, your lists and libraries. Same concept with Loop. So you can have a workspace that has multiple pages. Now, some of you might be thinking, okay, I use OneNote. This sounds really similar to OneNote. What's the difference? Well, the difference is that this is newer technology. Duh. But if you want to get a little more technical than that, I like to tell people that it's the new OneNote. And then people go, wait a minute, I've been using OneNote for a long time. Are you telling me OneNote's going away? No, there's no roadmap that says that OneNote is going away. But if you think about it from a conceptual perspective, similar to the concept we just said with SharePoint, in OneNote, you have notebooks, right? And so if you have a team in Teams, that team has a OneNote notebook, and that OneNote notebook has pages, and inside the pages you have all the little chunks of text, and you can put your pictures in, and you can put loop components in there, and you can do drawing, and you can do all the things in OneNote. I'm not trying to pry OneNote out of your hands. I'm giving you an alternative, another option, and nobody has been able to come up with a good answer to the question of why exactly and specifically would I switch from OneNote to Loop? No one has a really solid answer for that yet, other than because it's the new thing and Loop is more integrated in some of the other applications that you're using. Okay, and so that in and of itself is, for me, the reason that I am focusing more on Loop than I am on OneNote. All right, so so back to the Legos. The components are the bricks, the pages are the table you're building on, and then the workspaces would be the room. Because everyone has a dedicated Lego room, right? No hands went up. Okay, never mind. But yeah, so workspaces would be your room that all of your Legos go in. All right. So we're gonna just gradually get deeper and deeper into the individual sections. So any questions conceptually at this point? Those of you who have used Loop previously, does this all sound reasonable to you so far? Excellent, good. I love asking that question so that I know if I start seeing heads shaking, it's like, uh-oh, where are we going? All right, so let's talk about components. I mentioned that the components can be used in different places. So this is a really, Cowork made this slide. We're going to say it that way. They made this graphic because I couldn't have made the graphic by myself. So loop components, it's one component everywhere, always in sync. what I really enjoy about loop components is it doesn't matter where I copy and paste that same component, it's live. So if I have that component in Whiteboard, Teams, and in an Outlook email, and I make a change in that component in any one of those, or in OneNote, for the OneNote people, if I make a change in the loop component in any one of those places, it is near instantaneously updated in all of the rest of them. Okay, so let me walk through a scenario with that. We have a team meeting in a Teams meeting. Yes, I know. A Teams team has a Teams meeting in the Teams channel for the team. And while we're talking to our team in our Teams meeting, we open up a whiteboard and we ideate through a project that we're working on. And we make suggestions, and we do all the whiteboard stuff. Now, this isn't a whiteboard session, or else I'd spend the entire hour talking about whiteboard. But we do all of our brainstorming in there. And we come down to the point that we're ready to assign tasks or vote. Let's start with voting. So in Whiteboard, we grab a loop component for a voting table. And we've got 10 people on the call. We put our different ideas into the voting table, and everyone writes the pros and cons simultaneously. So we're co-authoring. So if you all have been doing co-authoring in like Word and Excel and stuff, we're co-authoring our whiteboard. We're co-authoring this loop component inside of the whiteboard. So everyone can write their ideas. We can all write pros and cons. So maybe I write idea number 1, and here's all the pros to it. And then someone else is like, okay, but here's the cons to idea number 1, but here's my idea number 2, right? And we can all do this simultaneously. Once we've decided, okay, we're going to go with plan A. Now we need to write tasks. Okay, so we grab a loop component, it's still in our whiteboard, for a task list. We write down all of our tasks, and we all can, again, co-authoring the whiteboard, co-authoring the loop component. So we're all just pounding out the different tasks. We can assign them to individual people in that loop component. We can put due dates. And all of those tasks magically show up in my planner in the my tasks idea, anything that's assigned to me. And if they're assigned to you, they show up in your planner under the my tasks. So to the question of, is this one more place I have to go look for tasks? No, your tasks will magically show up over into planner. Now, there is a limitation. When you change them in planner, it does not go back to loop. Yeah, I saw the face. I made the face. I agree with that face. They don't go magically back to planner or back to loop. But now we're done with the meeting. Okay, so first of all, we're not in a physical conference room with a physical whiteboard where someone's going to take a picture and email the picture of the whiteboard to everyone. So we're not there because we have a digital whiteboard. Microsoft Whiteboard allows us to not have to do that. But then there's also we still have this voting thing, and we have this task list. So what do we do with those? We copy them. There's a little button at the top right, copy link. And we go to either our Teams chat, maybe the team meeting that we're in the chat, we paste the link. It basically puts a copy or a synced, live editable copy of that loop component right there in your Teams chat. Maybe you go back out to your OneNote where you've been working on the project. You can paste the link there, and it puts a component right there in OneNote. You go, maybe your whole project has been built in Loop. You go to your Loop workspace, you paste the chat there. Maybe your director or vice president or something wants to understand the decision. So you take your voting table link and you put it into an email and send that off to the director. Now it sounds like you have multiple copies of this Loop component, which is almost accurate. But what you actually have is multiple views into the same loop component. So just like we preach in SharePoint and OneDrive, stop emailing documents for editing, just send a link or use your sharing options. It's the same concept. So technically everyone can see the same exact loop component. They're just seeing it in different places. Okay, does that just at a high level, does that make sense? Excellent. Good. Now, when you have that task list or voting table or any of the other types of components, and someone, maybe you emailed it to your director, they have it in their Outlook, they can go type in that one too, and it will magically update all of the rest. I say magically because it's Microsoft, so it's magic that it worked, right? Oh, come on, that was the best joke of the session. I promise that was the best joke. The rest of them are not as good. So yeah, it automatically, if you like that word, it automatically updates every other instance of that loop component. So if I'm still in the whiteboard and someone else is over in the Teams chat updating the voting link or the voting table, and someone else is in Outlook in their email updating the task list, then I'm still in whiteboard, I can see their updates as they're happening in near real time. Typically speaking, it's within a second. Obviously, there are times, networks, all of that, computer things that cause problems. But typically speaking, it's live, just like co-authoring a Word doc together. All right. I kind of covered this. Edit it once, it updates for everyone on every surface. And that's really the point of this one. One component that you put into other places, and it's the same component being shared multiple times. Questions on the kind of that co-authoring bit to loop components? Okay. All right, so now let's talk about the components themselves. So I've mentioned a few types of components. So all of you use Teams chat at some level, yes? So in your little chat bar, have you seen the little loop icon down at the bottom right? So I encourage you to click on that. And if you didn't know, you can Teams chat yourself. I love the fact that I can Teams chat myself. That's how I get things from my phone to my computer a lot. So my encouragement would be to start by Teams chatting yourself. Click the little loop icon and just try the different things in there so you can get familiar with it before you start sharing it with other people. At least have tried it a couple times. But some of the things you can do, task lists are probably my favorite one to do. You put the task list in, it goes into the chat. And it just scrolls up with the rest of the chat. But then everyone inside of the chat, immediately it automatically shares that loop component with everybody. So we have the same sharing buttons like we have in SharePoint and in OneDrive and all the other Microsoft button, the little box with the arrow. Same sharing options. But when you put one of these loop components into the Teams chat or into the whiteboard, it automatically shares it with everyone else who is currently in that chat or that whiteboard. Okay, so you don't have to remember, well, I put the loop component in, now let me share it with everyone. That said, if you're then going to copy that out and give it to like your VP who may have not been in that, you may have to add the share to that person. Okay. So anyway, task list. It's my favorite because it works. Because you can put the different people in while we're just in chat. Everyone can start throwing their assignments in, put their names next to the things that they want to grab. You can put the due dates. And then, like I said earlier, that automatically flows into Planner. And so it shows up in your My Tasks. And the due date is already there. And if you update it in Loop, it will update in Planner. But when you mark it done in Planner, it does not mark it done in Loop. So there's that. The second one is right below that is the voting table right here. I really like the voting table because, again, have you tried voting on things? Just deciding where to go to lunch with more than 3 people in a Teams chat, or even worse, in email. And then everyone's clicking reply all, And if you don't have the conversation squeezed together into conversation, you're trying to pick through all of those so you can figure out that Jimmy John's is where you're going, because it's freaky fast. So I like using the voting table. It has the column for what the idea is. It has columns for pros and cons, and so anyone can write the pros and cons in there. Pro, it's freaky fast. Cons, it's a sandwich. But then on the right, there's also the voting, so you can +1 and -1 on your voting, so you can get the track the counts, and you're not having again to scroll back through, and then someone voted 3 times, and someone's like, well, you missed my email where I said I'm allergic to Jimmy John's, and but I'm the stakeholder and I'm the one paying for it, so we won't be going there. But then again, at the end, you copy that link. You're done with, say, the whiteboard. You throw it in the chat, or maybe you need to send this over to, maybe it's for a project, and you need to send it over to procurement, or you need to send it over to the PMO department. You can literally just copy the link, paste it into a Teams chat to them, or paste it into an email over to the group. Maybe it's going to the board, which brings us to external access, which we're going to talk about later. Before you ask, because I did just say the board. Some of these other ones, bulleted list, paragraph, table, Q&A are fun. Page links, page links probably shouldn't be on this page, but you can drop a page link if you are using Loop pages. So here's an advantage of Loop over OneNote. With OneNote, you have to share the entire notebook. But I only wanted to share this page. You can share a link to the page, but they have to have the entire notebook shared with them. That's great if you're in a team, and so everyone in the team already has access to the notebook. But if you're like, maybe you're on your personal OneNote, and you have this one page that you need to share with someone, you accidentally shared the entire personal notebook with them. Anyone have a VP do that and then ask you how to fix it? I have. With Loop, you can do individual pages. You can share individual pages to people. So that is nice. And you can break it all the way down to the individual component. So you share a component, you share a page, you can share an entire workspace. All right. What does it say? Start with the type that matches the moment. A task list for follow-ups, agenda before a meeting, voting tables for a decision. And so that agenda at the top right, have you guys use Teams meetings? Have you used the agendas in the Teams meetings? Did you notice those are Loop components? So in your Teams meeting, you got the little notes section, or the little, description where you can just type things. But below that is the agenda, and when you click in there, it is a Loop component. It's an agenda Loop component, and it starts with the topics, and so you can put in topics, and then below that it has just meeting notes, and it's either a paragraph or it's a bulleted list below that, and so you can start typing your meeting notes prior to the meeting. And then during the meeting, up at the top, if you click on Notes in the Teams bar at the top, you click on Notes, it opens that same agenda workspace, Loop space, and everyone in the meeting can co-author your notes. So you're all taking notes in one place. Not, I'm taking notes in Notepad, you're taking notes in OneNote, you're taking notes on your pen and paper, and you're taking notes somewhere else, in the Teams chat, because let's be real, trying to keep track of the meeting notes in the chat of the meeting, that's not fun when you've got 20 people and they're all typing and it's scrolling off the screen and you're like, okay, Copilot, I have no idea what's happening right now. Give me all the notes again, or facilitator, right? So the agenda is it's very useful in your Teams meetings. Right. Anyone used a specific Loop component that's not on this that they really want everyone to know about? I think in addition to bulleted list, there's also a numbered list. So again, in your Teams chat, click the little loop component button at the bottom right, and it'll give you the whole list of all the options you can choose. Try them out, see what they do, explore them, get familiar with them, and then get excited about them and share them with your coworkers. All right, let's see, meeting notes, yeah. Yeah, my screen down here, it's mirrored instead of showing me what's the next slide, so ADHD is not going to tell me what the next slide is. And that's on the recording, yes. All right, so let's talk use cases. Meeting notes that everyone actually owns. I think we were just talking about this. So the problem, one person types up all the notes, and there's a lot of times there's some stereotypes about which person in the meeting is going to type up all the notes, right? And that person's probably not happy about it. But that one person types and everyone else into the chat, and everyone else is squinting at the chat and scrolling through the chat, trying to find all the notes. And then the action items, someone's like, oh, Bob needs to do this, and it's gone. And Jane needs to do this, and it's gone through the chat. So everyone's scrolling back up, trying to figure out, what was said. And then someone who's been using Facilitator long enough is speaking into the meeting. For the facilitator, please note that there's an action item for Bob to do the thing. For the facilitator, please take a note that there's an action item for Jane to do the thing. And hopefully that'll come out at the end, right? So instead, we've got the agenda. It says drop an agenda component into the Teams chat. But if you just use the agenda and the notes that are built into your meeting when you create the meeting, and then everyone can be adding the notes to it, or you can identify a single note taker if you really want to upset that person. Yeah, that was a whole sentence. But everyone can take the notes in there. You can add to your agenda as you go. The facilitator will also watch your agenda and will tell you, hey, you're halfway through the meeting and you've only done 2 of the 8 things on the agenda. You need to speed this up. Or we're halfway through the meeting, you're doing a great job. Or we got 10 minutes left in the meeting, you still have 2 agenda items left. Facilitator watches your agenda, and you may have seen it across the top. It'll actually break your agenda across the top of your meeting into the little fields to kind of show you where you're at in your meeting as well. Love that. Keeps me on track. But if you're using that agenda in your meeting, everyone's editing the same notes. You can also add more components into it, just like a page, like a loop page. Or for the SharePoint people, just like clicking add another paragraph or another widget, web part into a SharePoint page, similar concept. You can add a task list into your meeting notes right there in your agenda that was pre-built by the meeting. And then at the end, everyone should have access to those meeting notes, to the meeting itself, because you had the chat, so you can go back and you can see whatever happened there. You get your video recap and all that. But also, the meeting notes will show up in your loop, in the meetings section and loop. So, and then you can reopen the same notes from Outlook the next morning. Whether you get the email that says your meeting is over and here's all the stuff, or if someone grabs a copy, copies the link to that agenda and puts it into an email for everyone, because we all need more emails, right? Yeah. All right. So I'm going to show that to you real quickly. I'm going to try to show it to you real quickly. I did set it up. Okay. So, in the meeting, all right, so I had a meeting this morning. And so when you create your meeting and you look at the meeting, so this is that notes section that you're used to, the description or whatever it's called, that you're used to filling in. If you scroll down just a little bit further, here's our loop component, and this is your notes. So the loop component down here, you can see, first of all, there's a link to the component itself. But your agenda, and you can add your topics, you can take meeting notes, and if you need to add more stuff to it, you just click in it. You can move things around. And then the copy, I keep talking about copy. Up here at the top right, we have copy component, and that gives you a link. That you take that link and you can go paste it into a chat, you can go paste it into your OneNote, you can paste it into a Loop page, you can paste that into an email to the boss to say, we did actually meet and here's the things we talked about. We promise, here you go. And then the share is right here. Well, this is see who has access. Once you get over into the component itself, then you can add more people in the sharing. So that's, I wanted to show you that is where the meeting is, in the meeting. And then if I join the meeting, yeah, that won't break anything. Yeah, turn off the audio. Sure, allow it. Microphone's not working, good. So I mentioned the notes. So while you're in the meeting, if you click up here on notes, it's that same loop component. So now everyone in the meeting has the ability to click notes and be able to just type into your notes, add topics. Maybe we realized we also need to talk about topic 4. It's just right there. Leave me alone. And then follow-up tasks. So I added in, it added that for me, and I just filled it in. And yeah, I know it looks a little weird because of the sizing, but okay, it looks less weird now, right? But the cool thing is, so this is that's just a task list, as we talked about. And you can see I made a task for do the thing. I assigned it to myself, put a due date on it. And then I made another task for do another thing. I assigned that to Lee, put a due date on that. And so those now show up in my planner under the my tasks. Or if you use to do, I think they'll show up in to do in Outlook as well. Okay, so wherever you live, I live in Teams and I check Outlook once in a while. Some people live in Outlook and check Teams once in a while. So wherever you live, those will flow through to basically into the to-do, which then shows up in planners in My Tasks. And as a quick aside, if you are using the My Tasks in Planner, flagged emails in Outlook show up in the My Tasks in Planner too. That's cool. But not an Outlook class, not a Planner class. All right, I'm going to leave the meeting. And the meeting for everyone, because Lee and Alex don't really need to be there. All right, so that's that loop component there. And then if I go into loop itself, over here on the left, and I know I'm kind of skipping around now, over here on the left you have a pre-built tab called Meeting Notes. And so if I click on that, I can see the meeting from this morning. And there's my agenda. And you'll notice it's got topic 4 and it's got the demoing now leave me alone on it. And if I typed into here, it'll show up back over there. Probably should have left it open so I could show you the syncing back and forth. But like I said, near real time, it's supposed to be milliseconds. But I'd say within a second, it should be updating. Theoretically, I've had demos where I have myself open and I have Lee open and I'm typing in both of them. I'm typing over here and watching it over here, typing over here and watching it over there, so that the people can watch it happen both ways. I did not want to try and commit to too much demoing with all of with this network. Question? Yes. Yes, yeah, so this is this meeting. Oh wait, there we go. It's this meeting. And if I had another meeting, it would be here. And another meeting would be here. Yes, list of days. have the control button, I can do that. Got to do that at least once during a session, or it's just not a real session, right? But yes, yeah, it'll do the different days, and then you can sort it. So you can see at the top it says sorted by week. So you can go back and look at a previous week. So you can use your calendar to sort and filter and find the meetings that you're looking for. All right, let me jump back to PowerPoint before I go down the whole, let's show you all of Loop. Yep. Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. I don't think so. Yeah. So the question was, the first question was, will it show me different days? And the answer was yes. It'll show me the different days, and you can sort and filter by which week you're on. This question was, can you save it into a different workspace, or can Facilitator save it into a different workspace? I don't think so. I've not tried that. I feel like maybe Copilot could if you ask it to. I think, yeah, it should. It should. And I'm thinking while I'm answering. It should, because what it'll do is it'll just grab the link and it'll go paste the link into a different workspace. So to that point, I'm in the meeting. Maybe I need to share it with a director. I can either share the Loop component itself right here on the top right, or I can share a link to the page. And once you click the share button, it should look just like what you're used to. Yeah, allow. It looks just like sharing in all of the other apps that you're used to sharing in. It's all the same things. And if you aren't familiar with this, at the bottom, there is an expiration date. You can choose, and I'm telling you this, I'm showing you this in Loop, but I'm telling you this for OneDrive, really. If you share with a link, especially if you use the anyone can access this document or this Loop component, you have the choice of edit or view. In OneDrive, you can choose view but not download. So make sure you give them the right permissions, but more importantly, set the expiration date. Please set the expiration date. If you're doing the anonymous one, don't make a link that anyone can access and not put an expiration date on it, because then literally anyone in the world can access your stuff through that link. And there's a tenant setting for whether that is allowed or not. Okay. All right. So no one will share stuff. You can also copy it as a Loop component, so you can get the whole agenda component as a Loop component. So now I've copied the link, and in this case, anyone inside of the tenant can use the link. So to the point of the question, by default, you get your own workspace, which we'll talk about in a minute. But if I create a new page, I can paste in that agenda into a different page. And save it. So that is, I assume that Copilot or a facilitator would be able to do the same thing, grab the link and paste it into a different workspace, as long as it's something you have access to. All right. Any other questions about the components or meeting notes or agenda? That's a good question. So the question is, if you're in like a Teams chat and you create a new Loop component, how do you tell it which workspace you want it in? I believe by default it goes into just your default component, your default workspace, and then you have to copy and paste it into the right place. If it's in a meeting agenda, it goes into your meetings, basically the meetings workspace. But yeah, if you're in just Teams chat, then you go copy and paste it into the right place. Yeah. Or you ask Copilot too.
And
So
if you're an Outlook
I think so. I have not done that, but I would assume, I'm assuming, which is a big word, I know. I'm assuming that Copilot could do that for you.
think of ways of not
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a great question. It basically, avoiding jumping back and forth between Outlook and Loop, or Teams and Loop and Teams and Loop. And so one of my tips is to pin the Loop app in Teams, but it doesn't really it doesn't solve that problem. And so that's a good, I'm going to say a risk, a concern, is that, yeah, you have to bounce back and forth because you have to copy the component and then go put it where you want it. Or we're making the assumption that Copilot can do that for you. So maybe in the Teams chat, after you've worked on it, maybe you can say at Copilot, because the Teams chats have Copilots now. At Copilot, can you move this over into the Project XYZ workspace? I really hope that does work, because that would be cool. I just haven't gotten that far. I haven't needed to go that far yet. But yeah, I would hope that would work. If not, click the feedback button and tell them to make it. All right, let's see. Where are we at? 15, 16 minutes? Cool. Okay, so brainstorming and planning in one place. So this is kind of the problem. Ideas scattered across email threads. So we're on Project XYZ and everyone's sending emails back and forth, but no one's clicking reply all. They're just starting a new email. So you've got all these email threads, or maybe you've got 10, 20 people in this group and they're all clicking reply all. And now you have 3 million emails, give or take. And you're trying to put it all into one coherent thought. Well, obviously, you may have heard of this Copilot thing. Obviously, that's your answer at that point, is you need Copilot to consolidate it all into one something. Copilot works in Loop. So, hey, Copilot, take all of these emails and go make me or you might have to use cowork. Take all these emails and go make me a Loop workspace or a Loop page for Project XYZ, and put all these emails into it in a concise manner, using all of the prompting that you've learned at all the other sessions. With Loop, we make a page or a workspace. So traditionally what we've done for a big project is we create a SharePoint site for the project. We add all the people to it. And we have pages and we have lists and we have libraries. And we keep track of all the information. And that's great. And I'm not saying don't do that, because that's what I get paid to do, is build those. So I'm going to keep doing those. But if that seems like overkill for your project, if you don't need lists and libraries and a whole site for it, you just need a Loop page or a Loop workspace. You can create that, share it with the group, and now it's a lighter weight project space. We're going to call it a project space. And then you can even take the Loop page and embed that into a SharePoint page if you really want to. I have a client that their HR person or people, one of the HR people got super excited about Loop, their entire HR is all in Loop. And now the IT guy is like, all right, but I need to build a SharePoint site and put all that information in SharePoint. All right, let's check it out. We can embed all of his Loop pages into SharePoint pages, and then he can use Loop and everyone else can use SharePoint, and it's all good. And he can share that we can embed them as read-only, so that the end users aren't all editing his Loop pages and well, I don't like this policy, change it. But the Loop pages themselves are shared among the IT or among the HR department, just like how we do a SharePoint team site for the HR department and then a SharePoint communication site for HR to tell everyone else what the policies are. Same concept. Is that a good solution? We're still trying to decide if working in Loop and embedding the pages into SharePoint is a good solution or not. We haven't answered that question yet. We're still exploring it because Loop is still kind of new, and we're still exploring when it makes sense to use Loop and when it makes sense to just use a SharePoint page. Just put your stuff there. All the same stuff. You have a page to collect the ideas, links, reactions, voting tables, select ideas. We got 12 minutes. I'm going to kind of skip through some of these. Workspace per project. So this is kind of what we were just talking about. Everything in one room. If you're used to SharePoint sites for a project, maybe a Loop workspace makes sense if it's a lighter weight project. You're not doing 4 document libraries with 1,000 documents and an app where you got to take pictures to and put them into the thing and do all of the project planning and all. If you need all of that, go to SharePoint. If it's a much lighter weight project, a Loop workspace could very well be what you need. And again, just like a project site, it keeps it all in one place. Just like a OneNote workbook, it keeps it all in one place. So we just have a third option now. And the permissions are handled at the workspace level, just like in SharePoint, just like in OneNote. I love the last one. New folks get caught up in minutes, not days. After they've read all of the pages in your fill in the blank of which tool you're using, right? All right, let's see. So kind of the workflow, we kind of talked through like from Whiteboard. So maybe instead we start in Loop, and we're going to look at this in just a second. We start in Loop. So maybe this is that project process that we're talking about. We create a workspace in Loop called Project XYZ. And inside of the workspace, we create a page. This is our project kickoff page, or this is the about the project page. And so we put all the information there. We add more pages based on when we have meetings or ideas or subtopics, anything that makes sense for another page, just like you would in OneNote, right? We add agendas. We have some meetings where we have meeting notes and meeting agendas, and we paste those into our project workspace. You can tag your teammates. So just like in all of the other apps, if you can @mention people, and they'll get the little alert that says that they've been @mentioned. Go here and go look at your stuff. You grab the link for the page, you drop it into the Teams chat, say, hey, here's the page we're looking at today. Or maybe even the Loop page for the topic at hand gets pasted into the agenda in the meeting. And now you got a circle there you can loop through. But then it stays editable. Maybe you even paste it in, you share it as read-only to the VP, because you don't really want the VP editing your stuff, but they need to know about it, right? So that they can pay for it. And then you send out an email, forward the Loop component, or forward the page in your email to whomever needs to see it, to the broader audience. And that's kind of like a workflow. Wow. It's kind of like that's another workflow. It's the same content, 3 different surfaces. I love the 0 copy and paste. When I do this one next, I will add the word 0 copy and paste of content. So you're not grabbing copying your notes and pasting them into an email, copying your notes and pasting them into Teams chat, copying your notes and pasting them into OneNote. You do still have to copy and paste, but you only have to copy the link and then paste the link. So there is one copy paste. So that's another workflow walkthrough. That's hard to say. So those of you who have used Loop have another great example that you're like, oh, this is totally how I use it. It's different than anything that's been said or is similar even, that the rest would be interested in? And I'll put you on the spot. Think about it. So some quick wins for tomorrow morning. You get back to your desk at work tomorrow morning or the next morning or whichever morning you get back to your desk. Replace your notes in Teams with the agenda and the meeting notes. Do one. If you haven't already found those, right? If you are already using them and you don't realize you're using them, keep using them and notice it, but pay attention to it when you join the next Teams meeting. Click the notes button at the top, add notes, and then go look in Loop and see your meeting notes in Loop. Make a project workspace. In Loop, you have the My Workspace button. So you can just start there if you want to start on your own. Kind of like I said earlier about Teams chatting yourself a Loop component or a couple Loop components to play with them. You can play in the My Workspace tab, or create another workspace and share it with some friends, with some coworkers. Might be mutually exclusive. Okay, I thought it was funny. Drop a task list in the chat, and then assign people tasks, and see if they notice. They should get an alert, and they'll also get the My Tasks in Planner. But you can, if you put it in chat and you tag the people in it, see what happens. See if they get upset with you. Why are you assigning me more tasks? I don't need more tasks. If you're in a meeting and you're in a whiteboard, throw a couple Loop components in, even if they don't matter to the meeting, just to show the people that you've done, that they exist. Because no one's going to use it if they don't know they exist, right? Use a voting table. So same concept. If you guys are trying to figure out where to go to lunch, throw a voting table into the chat with the group and say, hey, put your choices here. Let's vote on it. Obviously, the answer is going to be 1 to 1 to 1 to 1. But, you can deal with that. You just cut one of the answers off and make someone vote a second time. And then on top of that, in Teams, I kind of mentioned earlier, if you pin Loop over on the left, with your other apps, pin Loop there, and that if you live in Teams, that gives you easy access to bounce back and forth between the two. That's where I go for Loop, so that I don't have to go try and find the app itself in the app launcher and all that. I'm already in Teams. I have the Loop button over on the left, and I can just go there, find my workspaces, find my meeting notes, and move on. And okay, so Cowork was being helpful and told me these are the questions you're going to get asked when you teach this. And I was like, oh, okay, I need to remove that slide before the session. And I was like, you know what? No. Because when you guys go back to the company, go back to work, and you're sharing this with other people, you're going to get asked these same questions. So is is Loop replacing OneNote, Planner, and Whiteboard? No. It is being invasive. And I mean, it is available in OneNote, Planner, and Whiteboard. It's interacting with them, but it is not at this point in time replacing them. If you have used Copilot pages, you might notice they look just like Loop pages. Wink, wink. Where does the data actually live? It lives in your tenant. It does not live out in the general public. I don't know where else it would live, but the components themselves live in your OneDrive. There's a folder for your Loop components. The workspaces are governed by your admin. So if you've got buttons that aren't available, talk to your administrative team. If you can't create Loop components or you can't create workspaces, talk to admins, talk to your IT department. What if I send a Loop component to someone external? So sharing follows your tenant policies. If external sharing is turned on, you can share Loop components externally. If external sharing is turned off, you cannot. Talk to IT. just the same as a SharePoint doc. I love that it says that. And then why do I see Loop in Teams but not in Outlook, or vice versa? So the rollout is per app. The admins have to turn it on for the different apps. I'm not an admin, but I'm assuming there's a turn it on for everything button. And then there's also the individual options. So if you're not seeing it where you want to see it, maybe in Whiteboard, maybe you don't even have access to Whiteboard, talk to your IT, because Whiteboard's cool. But yeah, you need to check with IT and just be like, hey, I'm not seeing it in this app. Can you make sure that it's turned on in that app? And they'll either tell you, oh, my bad, click the button, or they'll tell you, nope, we decided we're not doing that. All right, questions? Or just give Loop a try this week. I'm going to jump to this slide. So we got 2 minutes. Yes. Yes, question. Loop does not require an additional license. Admin just has to turn it on. All right. And do I have another slide? Nope, I don't have another slide. All right. Feel free to LinkedIn me, email me, blog me, well, Twitter, tweet me, do the things. And make sure you say hi to the sponsors. They love that. Pick up their swag so that they don't have to take it home with them, because they love that too. And have a great rest of the day. All right, thank you.